Voting.
Okay, well, that's important too. Yes, Drew. Play the music. Play the music. Voting is also important, so continue to do that, but don't forget to retweet.
All things that are important.
Retweeting the show as well as voting.
That's right.
Hello. Happy Friday. How's everyone doing? How's everyone's Friday? AJ said you can't win them all, so that's how his Fridays go.
Man, I'm kind of right there with him. I woke up feeling great about it, seeing the Broncos in a couple days, and that may not happen.
Oh, crazy time we're living in. Harrison, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. We filmed the DNVR show at the office today. But midway through my DraftKings read when I was talking about week 6, I was like, are we even going to get a week 6? So I'm with you. I'm with you, Zach.
Drew, how are you feeling? Rocking the Broncos shirt and the DNVR hat.
Yeah, I'm mad at everybody.
Mad at everyone. All right, so it's going to be a feisty Friday. But first, WGT Golf is the most popular golf game in the world. Plus, they are the official gaming partner of DNVR. And the DNVR community has had so much fun playing WGT Golf that we've had to open a third clubhouse. Each clubhouse holds up to 250 people. 2 weeks ago, we did our first major event where there was a cash prize winner, and then for cash prize first place and second place, third place got mask, shirt, and hat. So we had a lot of fun doing that. If you don't want to feel left out anymore, you can download WGT and join the DNVR 3 clubhouse by going to dnvrgolf.com. Welcome into the Denver Sports Podcast presented by Breckenridge Brewery. I think we all need a beer today.
For sure.
Started.
I'm getting on mine.
We aren't open yet, so I can't grab one here.
You could probably sneak one out. Come on.
At a bar.
Yeah, this is where the privileges of owning a bar come in handy.
I'm your host, Allie Monroy. With me today, I've got AJ Hafley, Harrison Wind, Drew Kreisman, and Zach Stevens. And by the headline of this podcast, you already know what we're talking about. We try and have some fun on this podcast. You guys go to all of our guys' podcasts for the deep dive analysis every day. But this is really some of the biggest news that's happening in Colorado. And so we're going to talk about it. Which league has dealt with COVID-19 the best so far? And because of that, we're going to start off with Zach and what's going on with the Broncos. The Broncos themselves seem to be handling this well, but their opponents, on the other hand, are not, and that is causing them to possibly not have another game for the second straight week, making it 24, if that does happen, making it 24 days between games. But from what we're reading, it might still happen. Zach, what's going on? I know today has been hectic since the very beginning for you.
Yeah, we're certainly not talking about the Broncos first because the NFL has handled this the best. That is for sure, because the NFL has not handled this anywhere close to the best among the big four leagues. And this morning, news comes down that the Patriots have another positive COVID test. So they haven't been in the building all day today. Their practice was canceled. And we're just sitting here 48 hours before the game, not knowing whether the game's going to be played. And the most disappointing thing about all of this, guys, is that the NFL, coming out from Adam Schefter, says the NFL has no contingency plans in place right now. And I don't know how you have that when you have a positive COVID test just 2 days before the game. That blows my mind.
And I mean, it's not even the first positive COVID test before a game. We've seen this happening in the NFL for the last 3 weeks, and also seeing fake positives. So it's kind of been an interesting thing happening the last few weeks in the NFL. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think that was the best way to go.
There's a lot of people talking whether the Patriots or a team that is getting tested is testing positive should forfeit. Or if the NFL should just already extend it to week 18.
Come on, man.
Or there's just so many different things. Zach, how do you feel about the situation? Other people are saying a team shouldn't have to forfeit because they're sick. But this seems pretty crazy that the Patriots at least continue to be receiving positive tests.
Yeah, to me, I mean, we've only made it through 5 weeks of the season right now. There's still 12 weeks left, and the fact that the NFL, the Broncos are out of options in order to move this game anywhere else but a Week 18. So they're going to have to realize either teams aren't going to be playing full 16-game seasons, so you're just going to be canceling games, or you're going to have to add a Week 18. Maybe even a Week 19, because what if they do push this Broncos game to a Week 18? Well, then what happens if the Patriots or the Broncos then need to reschedule another game? You're going to have to open up a Week 19. So the NFL is going to have to be creative here, something that we haven't really seen. Yeah, they've moved the schedule around, reconfigured games, but that's only going to go so far, as we're not even into Week 6 yet. And in terms of forfeiting, maybe Drew's going to disagree with me here, but I think if a team doesn't do anything wrong, then COVID's just, it spreads so easily. So I don't think a team should be punished if they're not caught doing anything wrong, where you could have done that with the Titans, where they were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. But the Patriots, it doesn't necessarily seem like there's any concrete evidence that there was anything done wrong. So I personally wouldn't punish them with a forfeit right now.
Drew, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll defer to Zach on the specifics of who did or didn't do anything wrong. I mean, the Titans, I think it was pretty clear there, but it's a fine line. It's a fine line that we're walking in this day and age, because on the one hand, yes, I agree with Zach's statement that you shouldn't punish people for getting sick. On the other hand, when there are so many other people who are following the proper protocols and not getting sick, it's difficult for me to just naturally reach the conclusion that, yeah, they've probably done everything correctly. They've all been as careful as they should be. And this just keeps happening to the Patriots. And as much as it seems unfair to punish somebody for getting sick, it seems more unfair to me to punish their potential opponents or the people around them who've really done nothing wrong. And that's the reality that we're now living in, where other teams are having to make adjustments that hurt them competitively in order to account and make way for teams that may not, at least, certainly in terms of the Titans, be doing things properly. So I get why a lot of people out there are frustrated, and I'm among them. I can't call unequivocally for the Patriots game to be forfeit. It's easy to do that out here wearing this in particular, but it's just it again, for like our no coast bias thing, right? Get the shirt at DNVRlocker.com. But
There you go.
it does it feels also like another one of those things that goes into those categories, even though it's in a lot of ways not. There's a happenstance that it happens to be the Patriots. But it just does seem like the league will go out of their way to make things work for those guys. And if it happens to mean stomping on the Broncos, who cares? And that just, or anybody else for that matter. And
Sorry.
that's right. Al, get that
There's
out.
a really big fly landed on my head, kind of like what happened during the vice president debate.
You almost became a meme. You could have been
I
a Halloween
almost
costume. If
became
you'd all
a meme.
done
But
that.
see, my hair is dark, so you wouldn't have been able to see it. It would have just been me like hitting my head. Before we continue, Zach, for fans who are listening to this podcast who aren't necessarily a fan of the NFL or the Broncos, what has the NFL been doing to try and prevent this? We know the NHL and NBA had a bubble, had that type of system. The MLB had their own system. What exactly is the NFL doing to prevent this from happening, having each team follow certain protocols and guidelines?
Well, the NFL has been extremely reactive since starting training camp. One thing that they did do before training camp started was they set up a ton of protocols, which you had to do. I mean, you pretty much have to do that to run any sort of business right now. And so they set up those protocols. They've become more strict as the season's gone on, and you've seen these outbreaks happen across the league. But then since, they've just been very reactive. They haven't been talking about a Week 18 setting that up. They haven't been talking about potentially moving the Super Bowl. They haven't been talking about potentially having a bubble. And you see some reports this week where the NFL, hasn't ruled out doing a bubble for the playoffs. Well, we got to get to the playoffs. We're 12 weeks away from the playoffs right now. And so we need to figure something out right now, because what I want to see football played on Sundays. And if that means that I don't think you're going to see a bubble like the NFL and NBA where they go to one or two locations. I just don't think that'll happen in the NFL. But one thing they could at least try to do is a bubble within each city. Now, that's not as good as a bubble where every single team is in one city, but it would be doing something to try. That's one thing that's been tossed out. But until that happens, NFL has just been very, very reactive to this, the complete opposite of what the NHL and NBA have done.
Harrison, what do you think of the way the NFL has been handling this?
Well, I think Zach put it pretty well. They've been totally reactionary. And I don't really get the resistance from the NFL to not just try to add weeks on to the end of the season and push things back instead of canceling the Nuggets bye week and trying to cram in all these games. I mean, at the very least for the NFL, the season would just extend further and further. Now, I mean, they're just operating under this notion that, we're just going to try to barrel right ahead. We're just going to try to, go business as usual and just pretend this virus isn't affecting the league as much as it is. And that's what a lot of the world is trying to do as well. But, I don't see why they shouldn't look to stretch this thing out and just kind of take the long view instead of being super reactionary, as Zach was saying.
AJ, what are your
thoughts? I think it's just classic NFL arrogance where they think the world doesn't apply to them. And they plowed right through with their draft. They've plowed through with everything else. They've tried to avoid changing too much of their schedule as much as possible. And then it's kind of all crumbling down on them right now. Baseball was able to adjust on the fly because you can play double headers and then you can cut them to 7 innings and you can do things to try and make up games. You just can't do it in the NFL.
Yeah.
And look at all the work that they did just to cancel the one game already. And teams are out of breathing room now. You don't have that leeway anymore. And I just, to me, it just looks like the NFL just thinking that things just don't apply to them like normal, and they're just going to continue to plow ahead and put their head in the sand. And okay, well, let's just hope this goes well. Zach's being extremely nice when he says they've been very reactionary because they didn't have a plan. They didn't have anything. They just went into it and said, let's hope this goes well, because it's obvious that they didn't have a contingency plan. They just barreled right on through it, and we're like, we're going to have fans in the stands. We're going to do all these things that these leagues that have been successful are not doing. And then, when we have teams that are breaking the rules, we're going to make them pay us money. Cool.
The things that the NBA and NHL did and that baseball eventually got to was those sports, they respected the virus.
Yeah,
they respected the virus. The NFL has no respect for it. They think they can keep on operating business as usual, and you just can't in the world we're living in. The other sports recognize that. The NFL hasn't yet.
We have a comment here making a good point from Michael Harrison saying they had more time than any league to plan this out.
They did. They had a chance to watch all the other leagues try stuff out. And the plan that they came up with was what exactly? They put a bunch of protocols in place in their own, in their buildings. They work for a little while. The discipline starts to go away. People are like, oh, well, nothing's happening here.
Yeah.
For people listening to the pod, that was interrupted by Brandon Spano's dancing on the live stream.
That's what we're calling it. That was the whitest thing I've seen today.
AJ's making fun of you. He said, "Love that."
Yeah, I just think that the NFL had a chance to watch and learn and take a bunch of lessons, and they were like, "Meh, we're the NFL."
What's mind blowing to me too, on top of that, AJ, is just that there's not a protocol for what happens if a player tests positive 48 hours before the game. Do you automatically push that back? I would think that there'd be some contingencies, right? But according to Adam Schefter, as of right now, no contingencies for this game. And what we've seen is, the league push a game back to Monday. Well, there's already 2 games on Monday because they had to move 1 game back. Well, they could push the game back to Tuesday. And then it goes to what Drew was talking about that competitive advantage just crushing the Broncos, because then they would be not only playing the game, 19 days after the last time they played, but then they'd be on a very short week playing against the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think especially with seeing the way that the MLB reacted to having players test positive and then having the team decide if they were going to play against an opponent, seeing all the mistakes that the MLB did make early on, you could have just planned a little bit more ahead, just like a little more. But then there are teams who are following guidelines, who are doing everything they can. The Broncos haven't had a positive test yet. They have been doing everything they can. So clearly the Broncos are doing what they can do. It's frustrating to see how the negative effects that they're having on them when they're doing everything right. And you see that in the players' responses on social media, having their game canceled literally last week, the morning of, and then being like, what, we have no plan. We have no idea what we're doing. We just practiced a full week and now we lost our bye week and now we have no game. Like, the players seem visibly frustrated. And I know Vic Fangio said this determines the whiners and the bitchers, but come on, like, this is a frustrating situation going on. And now look at where they are. There's a chance that the game might be canceled again.
Yeah, and the Broncos were supposed to play the Miami Dolphins this week. The Miami Dolphins are fine in terms of testing. So then, the players can say, oh my gosh, just because they wanted to accommodate the Patriots, like Drew was saying earlier, now the Broncos miss out on this game and their schedule is just messed up again. But as of right now, the Broncos are scheduled to fly to New England tomorrow afternoon.
Is Mace going to fly tomorrow as well? Or
yep,
Mace is going to the games. What if the game's canceled?
Well, I guess he hopes it's just like last week where it was moved at like 8 in the morning the day before, and his flight's at 9:30. So you better be checking Twitter.
Oh man.
Is he flying Southwest? Free change fees?
He does have that. So
there we go. At least you have
important. It's important.
But I mean, it's kind of funny, not very funny, but the guys were doing the Broncos live stream this morning, and I saw the news come in from an SB Nation reporter saying, don't shoot the messenger, but I think there's about to be some more positive COVID tests from the Patriots. And I brought that up on the screen for them right when they were, again, for the second time discussing what the Broncos should do to beat the Patriots. And then we have to adjust like that. But let's say the Broncos do play the Patriots on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday. Drew Lock. That's where we're going.
Welcome to 2020, everybody.
Is it a very high chance? Is Drew going to be playing or is expected to play still, Zach?
Yeah, Drew's going to be playing, which is big for the Broncos. If Brett Rippon went against Bill Belichick, it would be very, very rough. Now, Drew is still a young player, and Bill Belichick typically has his way against young players, so that's tough as well. But it is a huge upgrade getting him back. The Broncos are going to have Phillip Lindsay back. And, of course, Melvin Gordon had was charged with a DUI earlier this week. He missed practice today, but not because of that, because he's dealing with a non-COVID related illness. Vic Fangio today said that the doctors have diagnosed it. They're treating him. And if he's healthy enough, he will play. But there's a chance that he might not be healthy enough. So, I mean, the Broncos get something back and then they get something taken away. And it's going to be tough to beat the Patriots because Cam Newton's back.
Is he hungover? Is he just?
Yeah, I was gonna say, has he tried water and ibuprofen?
What about IV? They have the IV bars all around Denver.
Vic said. Vic not only said, "Is it not COVID related?" He said it's an illness. It's not COVID related and not related to the incident on Tuesday night.
He
So
needed to clarify.
Yeah,
it's a good clarification.
But you're right. One thing happens to the Bronco, and then something happens to the Broncos, and something else happens to the Broncos. Seeing that news about Melvin Gordon was just like, really? But they will have Philip Lindsay and possibly Melvin Gordon on the field on Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. So
Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. Yep.
Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. If the Broncos play the Patriots, Zach, do you think they'll win?
I don't. I think it's tough. And now you could point to the fact that the Patriots have had so much uncertainty. You know, they haven't been practicing much. But then we just saw what the Tennessee Titans did against the Buffalo Bills earlier this week, where they were the team that had the COVID issues going throughout their building for multiple weeks. They didn't get to practice, and then they come out and just stomp the Bills. So I don't think, especially being led by Bill Belichick, that would slow them down. So I predict that the Patriots will win. I do think the Broncos will keep it within the spread. So I think that
news.
It is. And I think that's the first time this year that I'm picking the Broncos to keep a game within the spread. So I think the Patriots win by a touchdown.
So you won't get some angry fans on Sunday when we release the spread.
Exactly.
I feel like they always tag whoever goes against the Broncos and it's like, hey.
Yep.
But that's a great transition. Zach gave you some betting advice there, but of course, week 6 is about to start this weekend, and there's no better place to get in on all of the action than with DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. To add to the excitement of Week 6, DraftKings Sportsbook is bringing back their can't-miss offer. If you haven't tried DraftKings, you should do so today. Head to the App Store now because you don't want to miss out on this. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all new users the chance to receive a sign-up bonus up to $1,000. On top of that great sign-up offer, DraftKings offers great odd boosts every Sunday to help you make it rain. Don't worry if football isn't for you. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all basketball fans a 200% profit boost. Well, there's no more basketball, so DraftKings is safe, reliable, and secure, making it easy for you to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. I have yet to take advantage of one of DraftKings' amazing offers, which is put $1 or bet $1 to make $100 on any NFL team. Last week, everyone told me my only option was taking the Cowboys, and as an Eagles fan, I just couldn't do that. So I'm excited to check out DNVR bets daily from today and figure out what team I am going to place my $1 bet on to make $100, because it's a big decision. I know you might just be losing $1, but I want $100. So I've been taking my time on it. Do you guys have any suggestions? Any team that you're like, bet on them?
Patriots?
The Patriots?
You know?
Beat me to it.
Zach, should I take the Broncos?
Oh boy, no, I'm not that confident that they're going to cover the spread. No.
All right. Well, download the top-rated sportsbook app now and use promo code DNVR when you sign up and get up to $1,000. That's code DNVR to get that $1,000 sign-up bonus for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Bonus comprised. Lindsay, you're doing that, and it's very hard for me to. Colorado only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25x playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And of course, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. All right.
You might want to take your Ravens over, or the Ravens over your Eagles, Allie.
Well, the Eagles. Well, from what I just heard, the Eagles have a positive test. So. Positive test. So I don't even know.
Never mind.
Happen.
The news is coming in fast.
Yeah. Okay. We already talked about how the NFL has been handling this, but out of all 4 pro sports, I want to get to each of you to talk about which one you think handled the situation the best. Zach, I know you have to head out, so let me ask you first. What league do you think handled all of the COVID-19 things the best?
I don't really know how to put a number one when the NHL and NBA both did such a great job with it. And then I think there's a clear step below with the MLB, but they had some tests, dealt with it well. And then I think you put the NFL an easy 4th last in this. But I mean, just props to the NHL and NBA for doing a fantastic job. They really showed that the bubble can work, does work, and will work if you fully commit to it. And that's what both of those leagues did. So I think it is so easy. And maybe the basketball and hockey guys will have more insight on just how those separate. But from a guy a few steps back from both of those leagues, they both did a tremendous job.
I agree with that. Do you guys want to talk about how the NHL and NBA differed a bit in their bubbles?
Well, the one thing I'll say is that the NHL bubble might have been even more impressive than the NBA because the NHL pulled off 2 bubbles. The NBA was just in one area where the NHL did this in multiple cities. And, like, going forward, I don't think there's going to be, like, a bubble for the NBA next season. I would be surprised if there was. But, if there was and they, like, try to play in home stadiums and whatnot and then have to go into bubbles, it's probably going to be, like, a multi-city thing. So the fact that the NHL has done this in multiple cities, that's, like, I think potentially, like, going to have a bigger impact going forward than just the NBA doing it in one city. So I think that's significant.
AJ?
Yeah, the thing that I think the NBA probably did better was that there were some people allowed inside it. That kind of made the quality of life a little bit better. NHL players talked about how when they got done that they weren't gonna, they were so excited to get out of there because they were supposed to have family and friends join them in the conference finals, and because of the border restrictions and because of all the problems that it presented, they could only get a private plane for $50,000 to fly somebody up there, and like a guy on an ELC, making $70,000 in the AHL is not going to be able to afford that. So, there were a lot of logistical issues that the NHL had in getting in providing something that they promised to the players, was that loved ones would be able to, family and friends would be able to join them in the bubble. It didn't happen, and players were really pissed about it. And it's a major pushback from their end on the possibility, because now the NHL is talking about having multiple bubbles for next season, for the entire regular season, because it worked so well. Credit to the NHL. The fact that they're in this conversation is frankly shocking to anybody familiar with the league. that they managed to do anything on that scale that well is mind-boggling. To the idea that people not familiar with the NHL are like, wow, hockey did a great job. It's like, whoa. Because, the NHL is wildly incompetent at almost every turn. And they pulled this off, but they still couldn't do it without pissing off their own players, because they could not get loved ones in there. And they said that was a thing, they were going to make it happen. They couldn't deliver, and that was a big problem for that bubble. In terms of pulling it off with 0 positive tests, and they were there from late July until the first week of October. Like, they crushed that part of it. It was extremely effective. The players had some complaints, but otherwise, like, in terms of functionality, they pulled it off. And the NBA, outside of the one dude and going to get chicken wings at the strip club,
which was a great story,
which like ended up being like a relatively like harmless, like it's kind of a fun, like, well, that's the NBA kind of story.
Yeah.
Totally.
Really, like the NBA did a great job. Like,
almost perfect.
To me, it looked like a lot more fun to be in that giant bubble all together. Like Jamal Murray posting on Instagram a picture of Donovan Mitchell right after Donovan Mitchell just torched the Nuggets, and being like, oh, that dude's just sitting over there eating food like 15 feet away from me. And like, just the way that the NBA kind of has that camaraderie with opponents made that bubble seem a lot more interesting. Also, the independent media being allowed in the NBA bubble to kind of walk around and document it. Like, we felt like we were very familiar with the NBA bubble.
Yeah.
Both NHL bubbles are still mysteries because they wouldn't let anybody in. They had the NHL.com guys were the only ones that were allowed in. And those guys are not independent media. And obviously, like, they're not going to say a single critical word about anything.
AJ, I do have a question, though. If you think that if the NHL was all in one city, all in one bubble, do you think the players would have that same attitude towards their opponents? I feel like the NHL is just a little different, like after big losses and stuff. I don't know if they.
No, the NHL is way different. I can tell you, Jamie Benn and Nathan McKinnon aren't sitting at a bar together having a beer.
Yeah.
There's not any respect there. You know, it's just raw hatred of that guy during their series. It wouldn't it's one of the things I love about the NBA is that the players treat themselves like a brotherhood. Yeah. And like the NHL kind of has that feel when it comes to very specific things. But when it comes to like they're in the middle of the playoffs, like they don't want to see each other.
Yeah.
They want to be on an elevator with that guy. You know, like in the NBA, it's like they get off the floor and it's like a lot of those guys are like, all right, let's go hang out now. Okay, work is over. Let's go play together, you know? And the NHL doesn't have that feel. Like those guys, the teams are the families. Those are the brotherhoods. And it's just a different atmosphere.
It was definitely cool to see Jokic hanging out with a bunch of different people from so many different teams, just bonding, getting to know, especially because a lot of them are foreign, and being able to like speak the same language at dinner and be around people of their own culture. That was really cool to see with the NBA bubble. Here's AJ, my last question for you is, what team do you think, or what league do you think did it best? If you had to choose.
I would say the NBA with the NHL like a very close second, just because of
the family.
The family thing was that they promised it and then couldn't deliver was a really big problem for them.
That makes sense. A lot of people in the comments are saying NHL.
Shout out to the MLS and the women's soccer league as well, because they all did a great job of getting their seasons through as well.
Also AEW.
Technically the UFC too.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
As
right.
opposed to the WWE, who may have actually handled it worse than the NFL in the early days. They may actually be lowest on. Well, we'll see how the NFL goes from here. They're close.
There's still time.
They're right around there. The
Drew,
WWE had to like fire like 15 people of a staff, and it was awful.
Wow. What team do you think did it the best? No, what league?
I agree with everyone else's rankings here. You know, the NBA first, NHL second, MLB a very comfortable third, which again surprises me. Kind of in the same way AJ was surprised by the NHL. Like, especially considering their start, Major League Baseball did almost everything wrong up front that they possibly could, like going into it, including deciding to have a big, huge CBA fight with their players over the COVID situation, and even being able to retake the field and having a 60-game season to begin with, quite frankly, is inexcusable. They very easily could have had a 90-game season or 100-game season if Rob Manfred and the owners hadn't played hardball, pardon the pun, at like the worst possible time. And then there was the first week and a half where we saw so many positive tests, and there's just a couple major differences about the structure of baseball that saved them, and AJ kind of brought that up earlier. You have enough games where you could cancel a couple of series and schedule some 7-inning doubleheaders later in the year, and you also just have these gigantic farm systems. Like, baseball teams are these enormous things, and it's generally expected. It's not typically true, but it's generally expected. You can just call up a bunch of guys from your farm system and plug right along. And the Marlins actually did that and hung on for a little while. But it was crazy. I'll tell you guys, like, after every single podcast for the first week and a half, 2 weeks of the season, Patrick and I would sign off, and then we'd just kind of look at each other and go, is this going to happen? Like, are we going to get through this thing? And, we were week one, we were like, no way we're finishing a Major League Baseball season. So the fact that they did, that by the end of the season, the positive tests have pretty much gone away, that they decided very quickly to create a 2-city bubble for their postseason. They've executed that extraordinarily well, and that they were able to do a season, and this is where they should get bonus points, where the other leagues don't, where they were traveling around. And there really was no bubble for the regular season. And other than the Marlins and the Cardinals, nobody else had like huge outbreaks where a bunch of people got sick and a whole lot of stuff had to be canceled. Everybody else more or less took care of their business, followed the protocols, and I'm quite frankly amazed, because we had people like early on, we had coaches being like, "Yeah, my guys can power through it." Like, dude, no, this isn't a sprained ankle, bro. But they figured it out. I am flabbergasted that Major League Baseball is going to have a World Series this year, and with almost no dramatics for the last month and a half, 2 months. Like, I'm amazed, just amazed by it.
All right, Harrison. Sorry, I didn't know if I was muted or not. Why are you laughing, AJ?
What is going on over there?
Straight up, like, what's happening in the background? You can't
ready?
see anything, but it's a lot of noise.
I know, that's why I was muted. That's why I was like, am I unmuted now? We've got Darren here. He's setting up to open. So the good people can come down to the DNVR bar at 4:00 to get a Breck brew. So that, woohoo! You heard that.
It just sounds like he's breaking stuff.
On here, it sounds like you're breaking stuff. That's what they said?
Oh, yeah, I don't know about talk. I'm sorry. The Eagles player, they put him in COVID on the IR.
I'm glad we're getting an explanation on this. This is integral.
Here.
Great podcasting. But no, nothing is being broken behind us. We are getting ready for the bar to open, So come down to the bar this weekend, because it's a blast, and we're following all the COVID regulations we need to follow. So come drink some breakfast.
Yeah, you see that table right behind Allie with the big X on it?
No,
don't sit there.
Yeah.
Don't sit here.
Especially if you're on the Patriots. In fact, you're not allowed in our bar.
Oh, no.
No members of the Patriots allowed in our bar for 2 reasons now.
It was very hard. I think we had 2 Lakers fans here during the Nuggets series, and
kick them out.
Adam and all the guys upstairs were like, But
one of them, Nighthawk,
we made it
she's
through.
allowed in, but that's it.
Harrison, who do you think handled it the best?
I mean, I think it's probably a tie with the NBA and NHL. The thing I'll say, though, about like the NBA guys being in the bubble, I know a lot of it, like the stuff that leaked out on social media, it looked like fun in a sense to be there. Guys were at the pool. Guys were joking around with one another, seeing each other in the hallways. It's a huge strain to play in a bubble, because a lot of those guys, some had their families there, but a lot didn't. Because, look, to get inside the bubble, you have to, quarantine for a week and test negative a lot of times before even entering the bubble. And look, you can't really do that if you have like young kids. So most of the guys didn't have their families and loved ones there, and that's why it's just tough to see like them agreeing to have a bubble in the future, because I don't see how guys would agree to do that again. And I don't really blame them either.
Harrison, out of the Nuggets, was it just MPJ's dad that was there, or did more Nuggets have family there?
The only family member from the Nuggets to go was Michael Porter Sr. And like Michael Malone like made a big deal out of the coaches and the staffers not being allowed to have family down there until the Western Conference Finals, which he was right in like raising the alarms about. The fact that players could have guests but coaches couldn't, I think was a little messed up. But just the protocols to get into the bubble, and like I was just saying with the hoops you have to jump through if you have like young kids, keeping them in a hotel room for a week straight, like that's just unrealistic for a lot of families. So yeah, most people down there just went without family for the entire time.
Coaches eventually were able to have family there, correct?
Yeah, they were.
Eventually.
Once you got to the Western Conference Finals, you could invite family down. You could.
And that's tough, though, because they went to a Game 7, and, like, you've got to go through all the protocols. Like, you have to go down there and prepare for that in advance, right? Like,
Right.
I wonder, like, were Clippers families like preparing? Like, were they there a week, like waiting to get into the bubble, and then the Clippers lost, and so they're like, well, okay, I guess I'm going home now.
There were some Nuggets staffers, I believe, and I'm sure it was the same with the Clippers, who were quarantining, ready to get into the bubble, but the Nuggets were eliminated by the Lakers, so they never actually made it into the bubble.
A slow clap. We have a comment from the Count saying, shout out to Zach's plant.
Yes, he loves my plant. Shout out to the Count.
Shout out to the Count. I love our members. We've got some funny comments in here. Michael Harrison was questioning why AJ was casually looking over paperwork earlier. He is voting right now. So
it was my ballot.
If you haven't voted, go vote, guys. Go get your ballots and everything.
It's really easy in this state.
Yeah, and specifically vote the right way.
Correctly.
Did you know? So I have to send in an absentee ballot because I still don't have a Colorado driver's license, which I really should.
It's been like 6 years, dude.
I know. But I went to, but it's been 7, but 4 of those were college, so I didn't know I was staying here.
No. He was still saying water for like the first 3. So
I was talking about water ice and coffee and all those good things. Rita, you heard that. But yeah, so there's so many things that you have to make sure you do on your absentee ballot to have it count. Your signature, the craziest one was your signature has to match your ID. And my signature on my ID, I did that when I was 15. And it looks nothing like my current signature. So I'm going to have to look at it and be like,
you have to forge your own signature.
Pretty much. But okay, anyways, random little go vote section.
Read the instructions carefully.
Read the instructions. We'll finish this topic off with Zach. Do you think the NFL will make it to the Super Bowl?
Yes, in some form or fashion, the NFL is not going to quit on this season, and it may take a lot of things changing. And it can't look the same as it has in years past. The NFL's trying to do that now, and it's not working. So it'll look a lot different than what the NFL wants to do and what they're used to doing, but they will. They will power through somehow and make it to the end.
Could you imagine classic media day with one player surrounded by 50 reporters all climbing over each other?
Yeah, probably not going to happen.
Super Bowl will definitely be interesting with the way that media works. AJ.
Just trying to figure out how they're gonna work around it, because the NFL is gonna do something. Yeah. They're like, no, we're still gonna have media day, but you're gonna have to wear a mask, and like we're only gonna let 6 people in at a time, and it's gonna take 14 hours.
I was gonna say we'll be here for a week. And
yeah, exactly. Media day might be like 4 media days.
Just here so I don't get fined for 24 hours straight.
That's right.
So right now in Colorado, we don't have much going on besides the Broncos, but the Avs have made a few moves during free agency. And all of our DNVR Avalanche followers know how AJ is feeling about some of them. So before we get to that, I got to tell you guys about Green Mountain Dental Group. They are the best damn family-owned dentists in the metro area. They're just 15 minutes from downtown Denver. They treat you like family. They're Denver sports fans. And if you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam, you'll receive a free Sonicare toothbrush. When you go, tweet at us, tag them. Oh, it just got really dark in here. Because when you show them support, that benefits us and that helps us. And we just want to show them how fantastic our community is here. Sonicare toothbrush. We've got Peloton Princey here, Harrison Wind. We always talk about it. Game-changing electric toothbrush. You want to go, all you got to do is schedule cleaning, x-ray, and exam, and you get a free Sonicare toothbrush. So don't forget to check our friends out at Green Mountain Dental Group. All right, AJ. I want you to tell us what for the podcast listeners, I'm about to show an image. So I apologize, but I want you to tell us how you were feeling in this exact moment.
Overwhelmed.
That's incredible.
What was going through your mind approximately here?
I just needed a minute. This was like the end of the show, and I obviously everybody I had like reacted live to everything that was going on, and it was a lot, and I just kind of needed a minute to just breathe. Like a lot of times when we go through our analysis of stuff, we've had time to kind of work through it, think about it a little bit. Like this literally happened in like the 55th minute of our podcast. We were just wrapping it up and getting ready to go, and then they were like, hey, we're gonna make a huge trade. That
Joe Sakic was just like, mic drop, watch this.
yeah, and it happened to be a trade like with the team that I follow and like one of like the players that I'm most fond of from that team. And so it was just like there was like nobody on earth more prepared for that deal than I was in that moment. And so it was hard for me to try to like contain everything that I was feeling at the time because I was so excited about it. And then like you're trying to be a pro, you're trying to be honest, but you're trying not to be like, they're winning the next 5 Stanley Cups, like you're trying to like you're trying to stay on earth here. But there was a lot happening in that moment. I just kind of needed to breathe.
Well, do you want to tell people what happened to get you so hyped?
No, I'm good.
Come on. Wait,
No,
I got the video. All right,
Subscribe
got
to the DNVR Avalanche podcast, you nerds.
Yeah, that's
and it
right.
has audio for the podcast listeners.
Oh shit! Shit!
Adult language warning. I should have said that.
Oh shit!
Okay, I need to stop it. Just hearing it over and over and over
Put it on an
again.
endless loop. It's fine.
Amazing content. I had people immediately tweet at me,
Yeah.
Allie, you need to find this clip of AJ reacting ASAP.
I was really excited.
So tell us. Tell us
well, I
about
mean,
the
like,
big,
so they
you
trade-
said there was 2 big NHL or Avs free agency acquisitions. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so they traded for Brandon Saad. They gave up Zadorov for Brandon Saad, which was a great deal for them because Zadorov's always been pretty overrated. And like they can replace him internally pretty easily.
I just want to keep this image up for
But I should just change that to my profile picture.
Yeah,
you
probably.
should.
So the Saad deal, like that's their top 6 forward. He's really good. He's a good complementary player. He doesn't have to be a star for them. He's not gonna it's not gonna be like an overwhelming amount of talent like when they were talking about signing Taylor Hall. The Saad thing, it was great value too because they're giving up Nikita Zadorov, whom they didn't want to sign and commit to long term. A guy that they had kind of run their course with and who just wasn't really a great fit with what the Avs were trying to do defensively moving forward. Sorry, Drew.
Drew's sad about it.
I just got to know Big Z and he crushed
Yeah.
I know. I
that.
think the fan base. Well, even though Zadorov took a shot at Avalanche fans, which was extremely uncalled for, in my opinion,
I didn't mind it.
I was annoyed because it's not 75% freaking Chicago fans in the Pepsi Center. 50-50 maybe, but not 75.
Get your math right, Big Z.
But fans were definitely sad to see him go.
Yeah, I mean he's a big, goofy, lovable guy. Like I will miss him in the locker room because he's one of those personalities that, he just kind of carries on the way that he does. Doesn't take anything too seriously. Doesn't get too high or too low. Just a chill guy. And like teams need that attitude.
Right.
So-
I do also like that he killed dudes.
Right. Like he put up the big highlight reel hits every once in a while. His effectiveness defensively, not nearly as good as you would think.
More than that.
But they won't. I don't think they'll miss him very much, honestly. On ice wise, I don't think they'll miss him very much. But the other one was getting Devon Taves, who is a legit top 4 defenseman for 2 second-round picks. The Avs have gotten exactly 1 NHL player out of the second round in the last 11 years, and it was Ryan O'Reilly in 2009. Otherwise, the second round they haven't drafted and developed a damn thing out of there. Connor Timmins might still become that guy. As it is, that's still their one guy for the decade. Woo! So them giving up second round picks doesn't really hurt that much. For that price, for a defenseman that's 26 years old in the heart of his prime and is a top 4 defenseman.
I had to add this comment from the count. We Rockies fans don't understand trades.
What is das trade you speak of? What is das?
Yeah, so Taves like solidifies their defense and really gives them another rock solid two-way player on their back end that is a little bit higher end than a guy like Ian Cole or Ryan Graves. So they just makes them better. Both deals were easy wins for the Avs and filled needs and made them better.
My foot is so asleep. And it's so tingly and so uncomfortable. Sorry, I'm really struggling. So I'm short, and I grabbed a big thing to make it look better. But then I have to sit on my leg for it to even out. Anyways, that's what I'm over here looking and paying for because I have such bad pins and needles. Yeah. I thought I would share that because I was making weird ass
We're all
faces.
very excited about the Avs now.
We are. So, real quick question for Harrison and AJ. When I've gotten a lot of people who've asked me, when do you guys, I know there isn't an official date yet, but when do you think the NBA will be back? Around what time? And when do you think the NHL will be back? Harrison, I'll let you go first.
Can you guys hear me? My internet was messing up.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
I don't think the NBA is going to be back until March or late February.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you think that?
The NBA does not want to play in a bubble again. They want to play in home arenas because they could be in a lot of financial trouble here. 40% of the league's revenue is from ticket sales. So they're already going to have to artificially inflate the salary cap next year just so it doesn't drop by a huge amount. And they want to get fans in the arenas. And the only way they can do that is probably by pushing the start date back as far as possible so they can get rapid testing. They absolutely need fans in arenas just to get some revenue. So I think they're going to keep pushing the start date back. They're saying January, but I think I don't think that's likely to happen at all. They want to play in their home arenas. They need the owners to recoup some of this money that they've lost. So they're going to push really hard for fans, and they absolutely need fans in arenas like this regular season, or else they're just going to be losing so much money again. It's not going to be good news for the league.
Do you think the draft and free agency will go as planned right now?
Yeah, so the draft's scheduled for middle to late
18th.
November. Yeah, that will still happen, I think. Free agency will follow a month after that. But in terms of next season, they're not going to commit to a date because, honestly, they don't know what things are going to look like in January. And like I said, getting fans in arenas is their number one priority for when they start next season. So I could see them pushing it back until they can do that to try to recoup some of this money.
AJ, what about the NHL?
They had a December 1 start date as part of their return to play plan. They have thankfully given up on that already and decided to push it back to January 1. If you talk to people around the league, they'll tell you that that's optimistic. Realistically, I think the NHL, very much like what Harrison is saying, they absolutely have to have fans. I think their number of the amount of their revenue from receipts, I think, is closer to 70%, and so they cannot survive if they don't get some kind of fans in there. And so I think they're going to try and push it off. They're not going to hard commit to anything yet. They want to see how things go. They want to see what changes get made. How does society handle the development of this? they've got to have some kind of fans and stands next year. That's just the bottom line. If they're going to survive financially, they have to be able to get people in there. And I think that they're going to try and push it off as long as they can, where they are in a very, very bad spot compared to the rest of the leagues, is that all of their American television rights are owned exclusively by NBC. And NBC has kind of a big commitment coming up this summer with the Summer Olympics getting pushed to this year. And so the NHL season has to finish before the start of the Summer Olympics. And so their goal is to get a full postseason, and they will shorten up the regular season as much as they have to in order to get a full postseason, which includes fans, of course, going in and getting them back on their regular schedule. But they have to be done by the start of the Summer Olympics. And that's a wrinkle for them that they have to consider that the other leagues don't, because they're not going to be on television at that point. We saw the Avs game 7 got pushed to USA Network.
Interrupted a Law and Order marathon.
Exactly, because of the Kentucky freaking Derby. So we're talking...
Horses are a national treasure.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't need more Feisty Friday from AJ.
Yeah, they're in a bad spot. And I don't think that January 1st is going to happen, but I think certainly by February 1st we're looking at something. I think it's going to look a lot like the 2012-2013 lockout season, where they play 48 games and have a full postseason and then just go from there. They're going to use that as their model for how to start in mid to late January and go from there. How they get fans into the stands, to be determined, but they have to have them.
So basically, we really need the NFL to figure this out, because it looks like it's going to be a long off season for the NHL and the NBA. And then we can talk a little more about MLB. Do you know? I feel like I don't even need to ask you, because that's a long time away.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same general idea here. Baseball does have a little bit more built-in revenue through their TV deals for every individual team in a way, though the Rockies' TV deal isn't especially great. They're a little bit less reliant on that, ticket money every single day. But then there's so many games, so some teams are more reliant on that than others, the Rockies being one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like everyone's saying, we got to see how society responds to this and hope that by next March, we're talking about more returns to normalcy and not how bad we've continued to mess this up and taking steps backwards or being stuck in the same spot. Because sports will suffer the way everything else does.
So it looks like we'll have another summer, or not summer, but springtime, end of winter with basketball, hockey, and possibly baseball. But we do need the NFL to figure all of this out at the end of the day, so we can at least have some sports and college football for a bit longer. But all right, guys, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for tuning in and watching the live stream, listening to it over the podcast. We appreciate all of your support so much. If you have any questions you guys want us to talk about, feel free to tweet at me, respond to the DNVR.com post of this podcast. Any and all ways of communicating with us, we'll find a way to talk about your topic. Happy Friday. I hope everyone goes and enjoys some Breck brews or some Strava craft coffee or whatever that's going to get you through this Friday. And we will see you guys next week. Hopefully there's a Broncos game soon. Bye.